What do you guys think about Palantir joining the S&P 100? All right, so let's talk a little bit about Palantir. So this happened on Friday. Look, this is cool, but this wasn't really news to me, guys. This is not this is not going to change Palantir's trajectory, and it's not going to pump the stock either. Palantir getting into the S&P is what mattered. Palantir getting into the S&P 100 is just like being part of a higher layer of the S&P 500. So, like, yeah, I'm happy for that. It's cool, but that's not really. I mean, it's just, this wasn't big news. People were acting like this is big news. I'm sorry. And I'm one of the biggest Palantir bulls that's out there, but this is objectively, this doesn't matter. Like, getting into the S&P 500 is what matters. This is more symbolic than anything. I don't think there's going to be a ton of new funds buying Palantir because they're in the S&P 100. And if they are, that's probably just going to offset people that are selling right now because they're scared of Palantir's multiple right now. So that, to me, yeah, it's news, but it's not news that necessarily matters. Now, here's news that does matter on Palantir, which is an acknowledgement by Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, about what Shyam Sankar and Alex Karp, CTO and Palantir, have been saying for the past couple of years, which is that the models are getting commoditized.
AI, and we have the IP rights, and so therefore we will want to build. Like, we built 5. Mustafa and team have capability that they had in Pi before. We have it in Microsoft. And at this point, if you wanted to just to prove out, that doesn't make sense. I do believe the models are getting commoditized. In fact, OpenAI is not a model company. It's a product company that happens to have fantastic models at this point, and which is great for them and great for us as, both partners of theirs. And so
I completely disagree with that. OpenAI is not a product company. It is a model company because they don't have any products. ChatGPT is a model. So I think that's a nice little spin of the words, but OpenAI is absolutely a model company. That's all they are right now. They're not a product company because they don't have any products.
So I want to go now where I think the industry structure that's emerging. Models by themselves are not sufficient, but having a full system stack and great successful products, those are the two places. AI.
Okay, now who said this in June of 2023, that the models will be commoditized? None other than Mr. Shyam Sankar. This was back in June 2023. This was the first AIPCon.
And as I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking, where is the value likely to accrete? And I believe it's going to be in the workflow and the application layer. And that should be quite exciting for all of you here. And that's because the models are already commodities. The pace here is accelerating and exhilarating. This slide, I made it a few weeks ago. It's already out of date. Falcon has been released with an Apache license yesterday. So we've gone in less than 2 months from Llama to Alpaca to Vicuña. We've gone from GPUs to CPUs. We've gone from massive cloud software stacks to running these models on a Raspberry Pi. So the editorial from this, what does this mean? This means that you're likely going to have a menagerie of models, not a single model. And you're going to be able to cheaply customize and tune these models to your needs.
Shyam Sankar was prophetic right there. I mean, what he said in the first AIPCon, that you will have a ton of different models and you'll be able to choose whichever model you want, and each of the models will become commoditized, aka you can use Gemini, Anthropic, XAI, GPT, whatever you want. That is exactly what's happening right now. It's exactly what's happening. Again, the switching cost for a consumer is 0. I canceled my GPT subscription yesterday because I'm using Grok. So it was very easy for me to switch from one to another. ChatGPT's main source of revenue right now was API calls primarily, but a lot of it comes from consumer as well. If consumers start switching, that subscription revenue goes away, and they don't even make any money on the subscription revenue because it's not profitable. Now, the enterprise clients that GPT has are important. However, I think that's where Palantir wins. I think having an actual operating system and ontology, security, governance for the model, all of that stuff is Palantir's bread and butter. And then I think if you're an organization and you start using Grok or Llama or Gemini as your main API that you call your queries against in order to have actionable workflows, which again, that's what AIP kind of consolidates everything to happen. And then you can just switch between the models. If you stop using 4.5 and you start using Grok 3 or Grok 5 when it comes out, when GPT's at 7 and Grok 5 is better than GPT 7, then where is the competitive advantage? Where is the moat? I think the moat for the models fundamentally lies in how good the model is. It's just that simple, because it needs to keep you on their model versus another model. And right now, I think everyone, from all the objective benchmarks I've seen, Grok 3 is blowing everyone away. Now, maybe OpenAI is coming out with something soon and it's going to be even better. And they're talking about PhD level agents or whatever. That's fine. Is that going to be enough to succeed in the enterprise or in the consumer world or with some new product like a robot that they might be working out? I just wouldn't invest in OpenAI because I can't see any of those things happening. I think on the enterprise, they're not going to win. I think on the consumer, it's very obvious they're losing right now. Even if they have the most users, that's not enough of a sticky moat because a lot of people are just using a lot of other products. Google just launched their Perplexity killer the other day, which we'll take a look at right here. And, so Google has their own different ambitions in terms of how they're creating search generative AI overviews. And then you got a bunch of other model companies competing for that application layer as well. So I think what that means is, in the context of Palantir, that Sham and Alex were way ahead of the curve. I mean, literally that video is from 2.5 years ago, them predicting that the models will become commoditized. That is exactly what has happened. Satya Nadella is recognizing that today, which I think if Nadella knew that OpenAI was going to become a commodity, which is what he just admitted in that video, he would not have invested $13 billion into OpenAI. Because what did they get from that other than the branding? Like, someone tell me, what's the ROI? What did they actually get from that? Some people were like, oh, well, Azure AI is having more business because of their partnership with OpenAI. I mean, to an extent, sure. But Azure AI is handling AI cloud workloads that they were going to get that demand regardless of their partnership with OpenAI. Is OpenAI using a ton of those Azure credits? Sure. But that's not generating real revenue for Microsoft. That's part of the $13 billion that they gave them. They just wanted them to be exclusive on Azure. So maybe from a branding perspective, that helped. But in terms of that 13 billion turning into like 100 billion or whatever, especially now that they invested in a nonprofit and now it's like a profitable company, but there's still some legal stuff that they're dealing with as well. I think that's where we're getting issues. And those issues are becoming more and more prevalent to the point where that 13 billion, it seems like it was wasted because they could have sat back and not invested anything. OpenAI would have got some person like SoftBank to give them billions of dollars. By the way, those billions of dollars literally just went to NVIDIA. It's not like that money was spent in any special way. It just bought more GPUs. And all these different model companies would have rose at the same time. Now, Microsoft 2 years later could have picked any of these model companies to partner with without putting a $13 billion stake into those models. And this picture right here, I think, kind of makes it even more obvious. This is what someone tweeted over the weekend. They tried to do something with Copilot. This is what Copilot said, which is Microsoft's core AI product. I understand that you want to improve the formatting of a specific field in your document. However, I cannot make changes directly to your document. Like, if Copilot can't change your document, I mean, like, what are we doing with Copilot now, right? So, look, I don't think this means Microsoft is dead or anything like that. Microsoft stock has been dead for the past year. It's not been the best stock out of all the Mac 7. However, I do think Microsoft has some soul searching to do, and they've got to figure out what is their AI moat. And is it just cloud? Because if it's just cloud, that's not that exciting. And they promised investors a lot more than cloud when it comes to AI revenues. So this is another angle to the overall AI trade that I think we're gonna have to find out as well. Will this affect NVIDIA? Yeah, this is just gonna mean more chips for NVIDIA, unless AI progress hits a stall, and then there's no much more to go higher, which again, I just disagree with that. But if that were to be the case, that would be bad for NVIDIA. I don't think that's the case right now based on everything I've seen and all the new data coming out. It just means OpenAI might not be the one that's going to win the race. It was ironic. Again, it was funny because the reason Sam Altman tweeted that they can't find as many GPUs or that they're running out of supply is because everyone was like, well, Jensen gave XAI all the GPUs. And he put you as second priority because XAI is actually like building like really meaningful stuff versus you guys. And so one can make the argument that XAI is going to be the winner here, not OpenAI, which is good for NVIDIA because Elon's getting ready to buy another couple million GPUs. But it would just be bad OpenAI. Like, every conclusion I get to is bearish OpenAI, bullish everything else. And I have no idea why, what's his name, Masa-san from SoftBank is getting ready to finance $16 billion in debt just to invest $25 billion into OpenAI. It makes no sense to me. Unless he knows they're working on something that we don't know about. But he's getting ready to put more money into them. And I guess we're going to see how that money ultimately plays out in the long term for an ROI. The one thing I do know about that 25 billion is a good chunk of it's going to NVIDIA. So that's one way to get exposure to it, is just have more NVIDIA.